Hello everyone, and welcome back to Phoenix Gaming. I am so excited for today's video on Great Western Trail. We're going to be doing the ring final for Great Western Trail. This is the last game that you're going to see me personally play in from this event. And Great Western Trail is a game that I played an absolute ton of during the pandemic. I have hundreds of games of this underneath my belt, mostly in the digital format. When I did my interview for my winner's interview for Dominant Species Marine, I told them that I thought that Great Western Trail was the game that I had the best chance of winning at this event. Hey, if you're interested in going to the World Series of Board Gaming in Las Vegas later this year, there is a link in my description below that you can use to get a $40 discount if you are going to be playing in all 4 games or doing a stay and play at that event. So if you want to, go check out that link and you can go ahead and use the promo code Phoenix, spelled the same as the way in this channel, to get a $40 discount on that. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this game of Great Western Trail here. In seat 1 in the bottom left corner, we've got Randy. Seat 2, I'm playing as white. Seat 3, we've got Jeff, who is the winner of Wingspan, if you watched that event. And then in seat 4, we've got Mark. Let's go ahead and roll tape. Randy and Mark are actually players who played at... They play together. They play this game together. And Mark quipped as he sat down at the table that the 2 games that he won to get to the final here are the only games that he has ever won. And Randy stopped and thought for a second and just started cackling to himself because it turns out that that is exactly true. And that is positively hilarious, that Mark plays at such a sharky table that the experience from there has made it so that he's now playing in the finals with Randy, who describes himself as not the best player at his home table. Randy's going to kick off with a pretty classic start here of dropping off to pick up an employee, and he is going to go ahead and buy himself a builder. Builder's a great first buy. First of all, building strategy, in my opinion, is the best strategy in Great Western Trail when everything kind of works out pretty nicely. The other thing, too, is that having a second builder lets you build those level 2 buildings, which tend to be the ones that are most impactful. We can't quite see what the whole list of buildings are this game, but there always is a level 2 is a black hand building, the highest taxer that you can put out there. So you really can't go wrong with a second builder. The other thing is that when you buy builders, it makes it harder for someone else who's getting lots of builders to play builder strategy. Highly recommend buying a second builder if you're really not sure what else it is that you're doing. I, on the other hand, just went ahead and dropped into the bottom left corner there. My guess is that the reason I did that is I had a lot of green cows in my hand. I really hate being inefficient with cow discarding, and so I dropped probably a green 2 in order to build a taxer myself, kind of in one of the best spots on the board in terms of I can ultimately use that spot to get a couple bucks from being in the forest. The other option would have been to kind of put it on the bottom row because of the amount of taxation that's going into the water there. But I also noticed at the end of the track that there's a black hand. So that middle row right there is going to be very tax heavy. And it's right before people buy employees. So I'm always going to be getting paid for that location. Where you put your taxers in this game, you're going to see this is just going to become a recurring theme, is probably the most fundamental decision that you are making in Great Western Trail. What I really like about the beginning of this, though, is that Jeff says, I don't really care about Nick's opinion about taxers. He goes to this location and immediately starts off by, instead of playing a taxer, he plays a building that's not an often played building right there on the end of the the bandit track, which can be a really dangerous place to play building because later in the game, it's quite unlikely that you're going to get there. But there are almost no bandits in play, which means it's going to be a while before that place fills up. He can go and get there. It's that hazard lot spot, so he can discard a 1 to get himself an extra $2 and a certificate. and then he could discard a 1 for $2, and then he could discard a green to move 2 spaces on his train. So he's going for a really explosive early start, and my guess is part of the reason he did this is because he had the appropriate cards in his hand to make it work, meaning a lot of greens and a lot of 1 cows, which I'll call gray cows usually. I will probably call cows by their wrong name. I'm accustomed to the first edition. This is actually an ongoing joke that we have at this event. I call the ones jerseys. They are not jerseys. They're something else, maybe Adam Carollas or something. I couldn't really tell you what they actually are. Meanwhile, on the other side here, we've got Mark deciding what his starting game plan is going to be. And I would say so far, of the plays that have been out here, to my experience, Jeff's is certainly the most interesting opening here of what he can do. One of the things about Jeff being able to move his train 2 spaces early is if we check out at the top what the upcoming station masters are on the train, the very first one there is a permanent certificate bump that you can then have certificates turn into victory points at the end of the game. That bottom part is only so-so. I'd really rather have the one that gives you 3 points for having paired cowboys. I keep calling them cowboys, for having paired bandits, or 3 points for having paired hazards would be even better. I think this is the game. Yeah, in this game we have the hazard remover as the level, the 2 builder building. I don't, by the way, know any of their codes. I won't be calling them their 4Bs or their 10As or whatever. I'm going to call them by what they do. So you're just going to have to bear along with me in that as well. I don't play that kind of style. Mark says, I like Randy's opening. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up a builder as well. All right, I had to do a quick pause there. Sorry about that. So that's the end of our first round here. And then Randy is going to discard probably 2. Oh, he's going to discard 2 white 2s to get $4. So that's really interesting because I think I might have missed the motion of it, but I thought, you know what? Maybe he... Yeah. I think he discarded a white 2 to buy an employee. So discarding 2 white 2s afterwards guarantees that he isn't going to be drawing a white 2 in his next set of cards. I don't know what the rest of his hand was, but I kind of wonder if it would have made sense to just go straight to the end of the lap there, because he can make it. It's 4 spaces, so it would have been able to get all the way there. And I decide to not buy an employee. I don't love buying a single employee unless it's a builder at the beginning of the game, or if I really know I'm going Cowboys or something like that. And the way my money is working out is just an awkward first hand. So I go there, I have an extra black cow, discard the black cow, and just go ahead and buy an extra cow. Buying an extra cow early is nice if you end up not playing cowboy strategy. It backfires a teensy bit if you end up playing cowboy strategy, but I like keeping my options open, and 2 of the 3 strategies, I'm going to be happy that I have that cow in deck, and I'm going to be able to be making points off of it. Here I start reaping the benefits of my tax right off the bat. I was about to say, I bet Jeff is either going to buy an employee or he's going to head over to his spot here, given that I think he had curated his first hand to have the 2 1s as well as the green 2 in it. It's also very possible that he doesn't, have a white 2 in hand. I'm, again, I really like generating the extra value off of discarding the appropriate cows. So if he doesn't have a white 2, or if he just doesn't like buying a single employee like I do, I think that's a pretty reasonable way to start. If he did buy an employee, well, I was going to say if he did buy an employee, I think for him, kind of the best one is the engineer, because he's sort of planning already on moving on the track, and then he can dump the engineer into the station there. But the engineer, really wants you to discard a 1 as well. And so actually to do all the things that he wants to do before the end of the lap with the number of 1s that he has to discard, he's actually a little bit limited, ironically, in what can be done with his 1 cows, because he has that spot now that he just landed on says really want you to have 2-1 cows in hand by the time you get to me. And to get the full value out of engineers, you're also hoping to discard 1 cows when you buy them. Doesn't mean that you have to, you just can. And then Mark here is executing what I think is the best part about going 3rd or 4th in this game, is that you can buy an employee and a cow, starting with $8 or $9, 9 in Mark's case because he's 4th seat, allows you to discard a white for $2, discard a black for $2, and then buy an employee, buy a cow, which I think is a really nice way to start the game. He's bought himself a builder. He's bought himself a cow. He's probably not going to end up moving into cowboy strategy at this point. Like I said, I already chatted up the value of buying a cow early. Getting those cows in before a deck reshuffle is really advantageous. So I dig that play from him. I think that's a cool spot to go in. Randy's going to head to the end here. He's not going to hook me up with throwing stuff in the desert. That's fine. I'd kind of planned for that to be me. And then he doesn't get to make a whole lot of other options about what comes into play. And then we'll see how good his hand is. So I don't know what he ended up having, what he drew off of the 2 whites there. If he had already the green and the black and then drew the 2 1s, that's good for him, ironically. It's about as good as he could have asked for. If he had like the 2 grays, the 2 1s, and then he picked up the black and the green, that's the dream. And then, entirely possible that he kind of did some split there, depending on what he picked up with those 2 whites. If he had 2 whites, a green and a black, again, I probably would have just gone to the end. And then I think every single player is going to do this. I honestly recommend that you just do this in your games too. Randy's very first stop is to Kansas City. Yes, it costs you 6 victory points, but those $4 are really, really important, especially at the beginning of this game while you are building out your system of what you're doing, which is primarily buying employees so you can take better actions at the things that you are going to be doing. Here we see Jeff stunting on me with asking if I checked that my opponents ended the turn appropriately. I think that I have enough money to do kind of what I'm planning on doing here, so I decided to go straight to the end. I think this means that I have a really good cow hand, and I don't have some ones that I'm discarding along the way. If this is what I'm doing, my hope here is that I'm going to be able to pick up these many engineers that are in play. Looks like I got a 6er there. And I didn't agree with Randy that discarding 2 whites for $4 was worth it. I'm hoping to move into engineers. My hope here is that Randy, who's before me in turn order and before me in like movement phase here, is going to buy a builder and something else, like a builder and a cowboy, or a builder and an engineer. Both would be, I think, pretty reasonable in his position. And then I will just move into buying double engineers. I'm also especially hoping that because I did not have that many 1s in my first draw, so I know I'm about to draw a whole bunch of 1s off the top of my deck, and it'd be nice to be able to get through them using them with the engineers rather than being kind of forced to do any other kind of way of discarding them, because I think the only one that I would have discarded would have been in my very opening hand. So I kind of had this situation where I drew all my 2s at the beginning, which normally seems really good until you get into the second lap and you're just like, oh my God, this is just a horrid hand continuing forward. Jeff is going to, since he didn't buy any employees, he's also going to buy an early cow. This is a lot of early cow buying. I don't think that you see this in very many games, that 3 players are buying a cow in the first lap. Often people are going for those employees or kind of going straight into the end to get a bunch of money to buy a double employee. I think Randy and I are both planning on buying double employees with our loans that we took out from Kansas City. I'm going to call them loans, even though the game doesn't call them loans, because that's mechanically, I think functionally, what is going on here. And Jeff is the master of table talk, goofing off here. I think that's just his personality. I did at first. I do remember, like, I thought to myself, I'm like, is he intentionally trying to throw people off? But it was actually just, I found it to be quite delightful. This way of playing is nice and social. And then when I realized it was just his personality and not him trying to throw game at me, it was really easy to engage back. Looks like Mark's going to stop off here. I didn't see what he discarded, but I'm always guessing that people are discarding 2 1s if they discarded something. So Mark has basically just done like half of the Great Western Trail in the very first lap here, as he is just making sure to mosey his way around and collect cash and do a little bit of everything. Given that he's last, he's not rushing for anything. He's not racing to get to any particular location. One thing that is interesting is that the next row of employees, the 5 row, the discount row, is coming up soon. We've got Jeff and Mark are going to go in, and it's not going to quite be opened up yet. And so whichever Randy or I get to the end of the trail first is going to crack open that 5 employee row. And there's sort of this interesting push-pull dynamic of the employee location being in the middle of the board where it is here. If Jeff or Mark manage to go slow enough and Randy and I go fast enough to push to the end, then they might be able to buy those, 5 cost or discounted employees, whatever you want to call them. And if not, then for Randy or I, it's going to be whoever gets there first. And so players, I think at this stage of the game, are probably paying pretty close attention to how quickly each other are moving to get a sense of who is going to be able to take first and then second crack at those 5 cost employees. The 5 cost employees just offer up a lot of options, right? That's not true at all. They don't offer up a lot of options. They're just better, right? It's just saving a couple bucks is a big deal in this game. And it just adds up. Those are those small incremental advantages that end up making a difference, which is part of the reason why tax buildings are so important. They're just small incremental advantages to you and small incremental disadvantages to your opponents that are passing through them. Looks like we're all kind of hanging out. I actually don't know what the stop is here. Maybe because they're setting up the cameras again or something. I'm really not sure what's going on here. It has been, what was it? October? 4 months? A little bit like 4 or 5 months. Great. So Randy, I think, is quite incentivized here to stop at the building because he's got the 2 builders and he wants to build that tax building, and where he builds this makes a really, really big difference. My instinct, I originally thought that he was going to place it in the bottom row. I thought he was going to place the 2-hand thing in the bottom row here because there's a 3 tax at the bottom, or maybe put him right after mine, put a 4 tax there. And Randy surprises me by instead of using both of his builders, he just uses one of his builders to put a single dollar tax in the way here. I think what this amounted to is that he didn't have the money he needed to do everything he wanted to for the rest of the round. And so even though he was going to get money from me for taxing back, I think that actually the exact amount of money that he needed didn't work out. So he didn't build the best building that he could because he wanted to be able to buy 2 employees when he went to the builder's bank. I can't quite see his cash, but that's the explanation that I have that I think makes sense for that kind of circumstance. Could also just be that he really wants to wait and see where to put the really heavy taxer. You can see the concerned look on my face. And then for me, there's basically no decision here because I don't really want to stop on that first spot and move 1 piddly space, although I get a certificate. I decide to go in and I'm going to go ahead and build a building myself. Now, I decide that I want to have some options here, right? Like, I don't know if I'm going to end up kind of scooping up more builders in the game. I'm really kind of hoping not to. So an option here is I can just upgrade that 1 taxer to a 2 taxer right now. That would be, I think, an option that I could probably get away with. If I was scoping Randy's cash really closely and the difference between a 1 and a 2 taxer means that he can only buy 1 employee versus 2 employees, there's a little bit of extra weight there because every player that's coming through is going to have to pay me 2 until we remove one of these, $4 taxes on the left side there. So that's an option. I could also play that kind of, train moving one that Jeff had played, not a super exciting building, given that I would be behind him in turn order, and there isn't a kind of clear hazard spot in the same way that he has put it that I could drop it onto. And I'm trying to think if this game is one of the games that has only 2 1-level buildings, or if there were 3 different options of level 1 buildings. I think this is a game that only has 2 options of level 1 buildings, because when there's 3, I think when there's 3, you always have the discard 2 and get $3, and I would have played that one. So instead, what I choose to do is play the cruddy building down in the bottom corner here. This Scott, the GM for this, will then kind of point to later in the game and say that he thinks that was a mistake. I did have some logic in what I was trying to do down here. One is that there were not additional water hazards kind of coming up. There was just kind of the black hand and the green hand there. And I was very worried that one of Mark and one of Randy were going to put their black hands in the desert, and then the other one was going to put their black hand down on the water or the swamp, whatever people call it, kind of along those main trails there. And I didn't want to be paying $3 to other players when I could be paying $3 to the bank. Further, I'm at this position where I don't think I'm buying any more builders. I'm in a position where I think I'm going to be picking up engineers, and I'm going to be running the train kind of along the way there. In which case, I really don't want to be stopping at that bottom left action of taking the building action. And so giving myself an option of something else to do in the bottom left corner when I'm kind of jammed up on movement seemed like an exciting opportunity to me. We'll talk more about that building later, but that was the logic of placing in that location at that time. Looking at it right now, I wonder if I should have just upgraded that single taxer to a double taxer. I think probably that would have been a better option, knowing what I know now. All right, Jeff's going in. He's got a 5er there, so that is going to kind of set up the next thing. And you'll notice that he put out a discounted engineer instead of a discounted builder. This is, I think, pretty common. People are scared appropriately of builders. And so making discount builders just doesn't seem as terrifying as making discount engineers, particularly when there are so many engineers out there. You're not really making it so that someone can execute a strategy. You're just kind of making it so that they can execute a strategy a little bit cheaper than somebody else. I think it's very unlikely that Mark stops to pick up a bandit here. He's probably just going to go in as well. That last spot being the bandit spot there, we kind of have like a little bit of a slow end of laps, just sort of like get more money so that you can start the next lap with a bunch of money. All of the like pay to play things are in the middle of the map in this setup. I think that's a kind of funky setup in general, that like collecting money at the end. So you kind of got to plan what you're going to go in and deliver with, get your money at the top of the track by discarding down or picking up bandits, and then go into the next lap with a ton of cash and make something happen with that. Is a kind of funny dynamic. And because there are so few bandits, there's not that much money there. Because we started the game with so few bandits, it means that there's a lot of hazards in play, which means that the taxers are going to become even more expensive. While Mark is considering his options here, I'll also point out that we now have kind of a rainbow in the bottom spot there of the 5 discounted ones, and there's an option to make a cowboy the other one. Since no one is really going cowboy strategy, my inclination is that someone would place something in that spot, and then someone has the option of going cowboy strategy. Now, one thing that we can't see that I do know and remember is that this is a game that is not particularly spicy for cowboys. There's no building that is the discounted cow market, the discard a card for $4 and then do the cow market action. And further, there's no action that does the cowboy shuffler, the 2 taxer that lets you draw and discard based on the number of cowboys that you have. So both of the cowboy payoff buildings aren't quite there. And the actual cow market is sort of like on the ladder. It's like really right at the end of the middle part of the track. So you're going to be paying a lot of taxes before you get there, which admittedly the cowboys let you kind of like ignore. But this board setup is really, really bad for a cowboy strategy. And I think we're going to see that kind of coming into play throughout the course of the game. Also, if you're looking at the coins here, it is worth noting for the people whose coins that we can see the pennies, the penny looking things, the copper things are actually worth 5 and the silver looking things are worth 1. Apparently that's historical, but it's confusing as all get out. All right, here we've got Randy. He's going to discard a white card and then buy 2 employees. So remember, I'm hoping that he's going to buy a builder and then something else. And Randy instead ends up scooping the 2 cheap engineers, which in retrospect makes total sense. I think I was just being very hopeful about what I could get here. There are a lot of engineers in play, which gives him a lot of options. Looks like he has himself $1 left over at the end, so me upgrading to a taxer wouldn't have made a difference. If, however, he had played his more expensive taxer and then I had upgraded to my taxer, he would not be able to buy 2 employees. So I think he really was just being, oh, well, no, he gets $2 back there. So now I'm back to not being entirely sure why he built the 1 taxer instead of the 2 taxer at the bottom. Oh, I remember. I know what the thinking is. There is, if you put a 2 taxer at the bottom, I can go, any player can pay 3 tax by going to the swamp. And generally, I think paying $3 to the bank rather than paying $2 to a player is a neutral, like a decision that most players I think should be making in the course of this game. It's just too beneficial for the player that's getting the extra. If you really need the extra move spaces, that's fine. But at the time, that wasn't the case because I hadn't kind of put my cardboard piece down there at the bottom in the swamp. So now I'm realizing why it makes sense for Randy to have put that smaller taxer there, even though he would have had the money to do the things that he wanted to do. Unfortunately for me, I did not get what I needed, and I think I just did a draw discard there because my hand is just so clunky at this stage. I am unable to discard the ones that I needed to with the 2 cheaper engineers, and I'm a little bit low on cash. So I'm not able to, I think, buy 2 engineers if I remember correctly. I didn't count my money exactly, but because I bought a cow last lap and I didn't stop in to get $4 extra, I just don't have as much money as Randy does. Well, I guess he bought an employee, so we're kind of equal there, but I didn't get the extra $4. And so I go ahead and I pick up the builder and a cowboy. I pick up the cowboy because then I can immediately go and buy another cow at the cow market. Buying a second cowboy here, again, winds up just kind of like being, it's a speculative play. I like to keep my options open over the course of the game. But I think ultimately it does not do me a lot of favors. Let me see if I can move my face and just confirm that it is. Yeah, I did indeed buy a cowboy. Yeah, that's a pretty weak double buy. That's not really what you want to be doing. I do not think that I'm off to a very strong start in this game. I did really want that engineers thing to be the case, and I think I needed to move faster to do it or play just a little bit differently somewhere along the way to make that a part of the plan. All right, Jeff here is moving in. He's building something, so he doesn't have an extra builder. Almost certainly he's going to build his little taxer guy. And I think the place to actually have put this would have been in the middle row because it there's my $1 taxer there, and there's $4. Another option, I guess, could have been putting it in the bottom row, paying other players $2 compared to paying the banks $3 is fine. And Jeff instead chooses to place it on the top there. Now, the nice thing about the top is that he's not really contesting with anyone else for taxation up there. There's a lot of hazard, things up there that are going to say, hey, I want you to go pay me the $1 anyway. My problem with paying up top here is that there are so many ways for players to spend money before they get up there that they're going to be broke. And instead of paying him $1 for tax, they're just going to be moving over it totally broke, saying, I'm sorry, buddy, and then stopping in the locations immediately afterward, getting money for it. It is tough with that building. I think people really have a hard time playing it not on the forest. They want to get the value of it being on a forest. But I think that building you really should just treat as having no power and being a taxation building of $1. That is, I think, the more appropriate way to treat that building's power. And then every once in a while, you might be able to get a couple extra bucks off of it depending on how you played. Oh, that's another reason, by the way, why I ended up playing my thing at the very bottom of the board, because it's also in the forest. So now if I can stop at that spot and pick up $4 as an option for me. I wonder if I ever remember that actually throughout the course of the game, because I've just mentally written that building off. And now I'll wonder if I have to see and say, well, I should have stopped there and get the money. But I can't quite see. I think even if I move my face, we can't see my money. Well, I guess we can. We'll take a look when it's interesting. So I've got $2 left there. $2 is going to let me discard a black cow to have 4 to buy another cow if I want to. So I imagine I'm going to stop in and buy a red cow, but we'll see. Mark is sitting here thinking where he wants to put his taxer. He's sitting on $10, $14, $15. I'm sure he'd also like to buy 2 people. I didn't see if he already paid the 4. He did not. So this is going to leave him in a situation where he can only buy 1 employee rather than 2. But maybe he's not excited about the employees that are out there. And he puts it where I think this game, I think, would be very, very different if Jeff had placed his in exactly that location. Then does Mark also place his there? I think he probably does in the middle, which just makes for an absolute nightmare run for Randy, who then kind of like needs to clear that spot out. And probably Mark and I have to decide every turn whether we're going to pay $4 to the bank or $3 to other players. Probably we end up paying $4 to the bank because it's just kind of very messy. This placement is brutal for me. I was really, really hoping that he would place this kind of on the bottom. You see that there is another swamp hazard up top in the market right now. So the market for the swamp is just as good as the market for the desert, and you're guaranteed that players are going to have money pretty much at the beginning of the lap. So I had kind of convinced myself that Mark was going to place in front of Randy's location. Then that's a move 2 that moves him onto the building space rather than move 2 moving him onto, well, at this stage he's got a couple options, but if someone builds after him, which I think is quite reasonable, then it only moves you onto the buy employee space. I don't love having buildings that move you onto the employee space, because while you do want to be buying a lot of employees in this game at kind of various points, and you'll probably buy them throughout the course of the game, there are some strategies that don't want to keep buying employees. If Mark is thinking that he's going to move into a builder strategy kind of over the course of the game, then he might be spending a bunch of his money down at that building location in the bottom left corner and may not have the cash to buy employees. If, however, Mark is thinking, look, I'm moving out of the employee, out of the building game, then what I would have done is I actually would have pushed his building up 1 space closer to the building spot, because then when he bounces off of it, it lets him move 2 spaces. And while the board in the middle there is cleared, he could then bounce over to the cow market, bounce to the builder market. So there's a couple things about his placement that I think I would have just done a little bit differently if it was in my position. It ends up working, I think, pretty well for him. So it's not that it's not a bad spot at all. There's just kind of these like little things that I would consider a little bit different. And it looks like Randy ended up having just enough money thanks to the taxation to discard a black cow and buy another cow. So he is really having a pretty killer start to the game. I think it's typical that the player who is in the first seat has the strongest start to the game. They kind of have the most control over the tempo, like where they start and where they're going. So they're least influenced by the decisions of other players because of the way kind of the pattern goes. And yeah, I think that just ends up working out really nicely for him. Looks like I am indeed gonna buy myself probably a red cow here, which is, again, not really the place you want to be at this stage in the game, but it does give me a better draw. I think I have not reshuffled my deck yet. And so it'll give me 2-3 cows in my deck to get some options. Really, you're trying to think of ways that you can get up to that 10 spot. You wanted to deliver to Chicago as soon as possible. This board is already getting extremely cluttered. And here we see Jeff making the unfortunate decision of having to spend $3 or $4. He ends up giving $3 to other players. Again, I personally would have probably paid $4 to the bank, but he's also, a little bit tight on money. He needs to buy an employee right now. He wants to move his train along the way. So we'll have to see what his money looks like kind of by the end of the round, whether that $1 extra makes a difference or not, because I'm sure that he's kind of plotted out what his plan is. But it's something I think certainly worth considering. If he's got a 1 cow in his hand, I think it absolutely makes sense to pay the 7 to buy the engineer. But instead, he is going to pay 6 to buy the cowboy. My guess is that he's going to then use that. Oh, nope, he is going to buy the engineer. And that lets him cycle a 1 card out of his hand, lets him get a certificate. That's pretty helpful. Also kind of like fits in with generally what he's doing right now. And frankly, he doesn't care a ton about what employee he has, because he's probably going for that very first train station spot in the near future, probably by the end of the lap, frankly. Actually, looking at it, Jeff did a really, really nifty thing that I didn't notice. When he delivered last round, instead of taking the disc off of the get $2 for the auxiliary actions, which I think is kind of the default starter action that most take, he has done what I think is the other best starting action, which is pay $1 to move your train a space. And now I'm seeing why Jeff would only want to spend $3 instead of $4, because what he can do is he can go to that auxiliary space right next to in the elbow there, right next to where the buy employees building is. That'll let him move his train 2 spaces with the engineer. Then he'll spend $1 with the auxiliary action to move 1 more space, which puts him into the spot there. Then he can spend $2 to pick up that station master tile. And then he can follow that up with whatever he wants to. If he's got enough 1s in his hand, he can kind of go and bump his train along again, maybe kind of flex for the other station master spot. Or he can just say, I don't really care anymore. I really just wanted that first spot, and I'm content to kind of go on and live the rest of my life doing whatever strategy I please. Just kind of depends on what his hand looks like at that stage. Another thing to point out and kind of consider that would be quaint is if he actually had taken a backup, like lose a card from your deck and get $1, he could have moved 2 forward, moved 1 back, and then used his building to move 2 forward in. So if you wanted to go for a shredding strategy, that would certainly be pretty reasonable. While I am maligning a couple of the parts of my game, I will say that very first building that I placed has made a fair amount of tax. Every single player has paid me at least once, and Jeff has paid me twice. So it has made $4 by itself already. It will continue to make money over the course of the game. And so, if you're considering what kind of building is there, that's a great example of why tax buildings just make a huge difference, because it's not only that plus $4 that I've made. I mean, I guess it cost me basically nothing, right? Because I just started agreeing to place it. So as an action, it's given me $4 slowly. It will continue to give me more dollars, and it's taken money away from my opponents. So just placing a taxer in the right location gives you so much power. I'm going to continue talking about it, because if you don't know how to place tax buildings in this game, that is the thing that is keeping you from being as good as you can be at this game. Mark ends up going and buying a single cowboy. I am actually quite pleased to see that, because now I think, well, I'm a little torn on seeing it, because I'm thinking to myself, look, maybe I'll go cowboy strategy. Oh, but he's bought one, so maybe he's going out of builder and he wants to go cowboy strategy. He's kind of got a couple of various options there, and he makes the choice of clearing out the hazard over in the top part, which is unfortunate for Jeff to see. It's points for him, right? I don't think that's a problem. Spending 5 for removing a hazard is usually pretty good. And those hazards at the bottom row are pretty junky, but an option for him could have been removing something out of the swamp there, or just keeping the $5 at this stage in the game. He also could have considered, I think, maybe not buying an employee, But I think him buying the employee here indicates that he's probably going to stop and buy more cows. So it's a little awkward because Mark and I are sitting at the exact same position here, which is not generally where you want to be in this game. You'd like to be a little bit divergent from the other players. And so I think one of us will not be happy with that. Yes, make sure you align the luck elephant. That being, I think we're joking about the removing of that rockfall hazard. It doesn't make really any difference for Jeff. I don't think that that money there prevents folks from doing anything. Randy pays $1 to the bank there. That would have been true whether Mark had removed that hazard or not. So it's that this is an example, like he's so broke that he says, well, I'm paying either $1 to Jeff or $1 to the bank. I mean, it would be $3 or $4 to the bank, but I only have $1 because I'm broke. And I am in the exact same position, except for I think I did pick up some taxes. So he actually does get $1 from me. Here I go dumping a bunch of ones that I wasn't able to dump earlier. And it's annoying that I'm actually kind of stuck in this position of being on pace with Randy. I would really like to break pace with him and like get into Kansas City before him or a little bit after him. Like I said, the first person to crack that location is going to be the first person to buy the 5 employees, which is really where I want to be. I'd love to be able to pick up those $5 employees. And, looking at what's out there, the first person in there, if Randy's in there, he gets to put out a 5 cost engineer. The thing is that my hand is full of ones and I don't really have any options for changing it. I think I did already use my draw discard tile. So that's the way that it is, right? Like that's one of the advantages of going first is you get to set that tempo. And if other players can't disrupt that tempo, move a little bit faster, that's unfortunate for them. I actually don't think I could have gone in. Well, no, I was at the cowboy. I was at the cow spot. So I could have gone in. Yeah. Yeah. That is the way that it goes. I guess I could have considered not buying a cow this turn to kind of get ahead of him, but I really wanted a cow to be in the deck for the reshuffle. So yeah, I don't think so. So Jeff's going to go ahead here and make use of his little train. He's not going to do the auxiliary plan action that I said. He's just going to kind of like choo-choo it up ahead here. It could be that he's going to decide to stop at the bandit location, scoop some dollars that way, and use his auxiliary action to move the extra space there. It's ideal, but not necessary for him to try to get into that station before the end of the lap because it's an extra $1 for having that certificate. And Randy's got enough. He's only got 3. Okay, so he's actually not worried about Randy kind of scooping him. But it can be a situation where if you are too slow in getting to the first station, the player who ends up buying engineers can actually scooch in right before you, which can really, really hose your game plan. Looks like Mark did a quick cow buy, which makes sense given the play that he did last turn. I think that was pretty heavily signaled. Randy's going to kind of keep the tax situation going on down here. I was very disappointed to see that another swamp tile had come out. At the time that I built my building, it wasn't out, and I wanted to be able to kind of go to the bottom there and then just discard ones to get some money and get some certificates that way. Just didn't work out. That happens. Randy's got the dream here, full 7, full Monty. I think he is debating whether he wants to take a second loan. He has gone for a pretty heavy employee strategy, right? He bought a builder at the beginning. He really wants to buy that level 2 taxer. He's going to buy some more engineers. He's going to need to pay those engineers when he's going into stations along the way. There's a lot of taxes in this game. So he does really need a bunch of money. But that being said, he looks at it and says, I've got enough. I don't want the -4 points. Just go ahead and put me on the 1 spot there. Even though he has a 7, you noted that he could have gone to the 4 or the 6 spot, but to go to the 6 spot would cost him $3, costing those 3 X's. And so most players, I think at the level that we're playing at, will stop into that one location to not pay the penalty for crossing those X's, especially in Randy's position where he is going to be moving those train engineers. And when he goes to the 6 in the future, he won't pay any penalty at all. So he wants that additional time there. Unfortunately, we just keep drawing cowboys into this game where cowboys are crap, and I get to make no decisions as I come in here. I guess I could stop. I know that Randy's just gonna like beat me in. I would like to buy maybe that $5 builder, or maybe I want to buy the $5 cowboy and the $6 cowboy and go full into cowboys or something like that. Money is a little bit tight for me right now. The fact that I'm debating here says, look, I could stop at this bandit location and pick up $2 for the bandit, $2 for my auxiliary action. $4 is not bad for a spot. It's not great for a spot, but it's certainly not bad. Yeah, I think I go in, but I must be counting the amount of money about what I'm going to do on my next turn. I am legitimately wondering if at this point in time, so I'm wondering if I go in, I think ideally I don't want to be building anything. I mean, I could upgrade my my taxer into the 2 taxer, but it's likely that whole road is going to get clogged. So it's not super exciting to do that. It's 4 spaces to my building where I can make $4, right? Because of the double forest there. But if Randy ends up building his taxer in front of his other taxer, then I can't actually make it there. So I probably need those $4. And I decide, hey, stopping for the bandit and a couple dollars is just not worth it. Send me in. Let's see how bad this hand is. I think that's a 5er, if I saw correctly. Maybe it is the full 7. I'll be surprised if I don't also end up going to the 1. I mean, I am not generally a fan of taking double taxes. I think a lot of other people are, double loans. In the first edition of this game, where the -6 points was worth $6, I think taking 2 loans was the default. Now that it's only $4, taking a second loan is a really difficult decision. I like to try to get through the game by only doing 1. And then I played in a 4-player different final at a different tournament for this. And every player except for me took out 2 loans, and I came in dead last place. So the mantra of only 1 loan is now a little bit sus in my mind, even though I was pretty convinced that only taking 1 loan was the correct choice for a long time. So now that I see that Jeff's picked up a lot of money, and he can't know how many taxes he was going to take, but he ended up not stopping in the auxiliary action space. To go back to my point earlier, I think he should have paid 4 to the bank instead of paying 3 to the other players. That being said, the counterpoint to that is that I think the person who is leading right now, who's got the best board position, is Randy. This is going to be a common theme throughout this game. And there's no reason maybe to hurt yourself, to hurt the other players, right? It's like, not pay me, not pay Mark, hurt yourself a little bit. Who really benefits there? It's Randy. So it's a 4-player game. Like, you have to beat everybody. Just doing something that's like 3 to other players, 4 to the bank is not as simple as the math goes. Jeff's going to go curate his hand by discarding some stuff. Now he's just got piles and piles and piles of money. When he finally stops in to buy employees next time, he can basically pivot into whatever strategy he wants to, which is nice, except for the fact that we've flipped so many cowboys that does he really want to switch into cowboys in the mid game? Doesn't feel so good. If you had a second cow market, the building that's the second cow market, that's really different, because now you got a lot of places where you can use those cowboys to keep buying stuff, and that makes sense. But having there be 1 cow market kind of at the end of the trail, it just isn't quite as good to switch into cowboys in the middle of the game. I think everybody's kind of thinking this, but Mark and I already have a cowboy. And here, Randy's going to build his taxer. I will say, I don't know why I was thinking that Randy would build his taxer behind his other taxer, because it just really incentivizes players to clear the bottom, which this game has has the building that clears tax buildings. And so instead what he does is he chooses the path of violence, and he just makes the middle absolute hell. We're gonna see in just a second what he does here. He could go on the bottom. That's, I think, appropriate for the like ratio of like tax costs. But yeah, like I said, players are then really incentivized to go in the bottom, like through the swamp, rather than pay him. So he's just kind of hurting himself by putting his taxer there. So that's a pretty bad play. He could put the taxer like somewhere in the middle, but like not everyone's going the same way. Jeff's kind of like going down around the bandit path, and like there's not a good spot there. He can put it in the top in front of Jeff's other building, which is okay, but the move 2 then kind of like flings him onto the discard 2 things for $4, which is only good if he's got $4. So he really doesn't have a lot of good options. And he ends up choosing, I think, which is basically the only remaining spot on the board where you want to be putting that double taxer building, unless you're not Randy, which you want it to be at the bottom. And this was to go back to my point about commenting on Mark's building earlier, is I think if Mark had placed to the south and then Randy had placed in the middle, then Mark could be using his $5 to clear the desert, not pay me, not pay Randy, and his tax situation there is going a little bit better. That's, I think the like flow that I like a little bit more for that. But now this path in the middle here just totally sucks. Randy and Mark have kind of punched each other a little bit. They've definitely punched me. And I'm now, was once the king of desert path, I'm probably going to be going around the outside, which is really, really awkward. I've got the same kind of situation here where it's like, well, what am I going to do? I've got 2 builders now. I think it just goes in the bottom in the swamp, like right in front of Randy's spot. I think the thing that I'm just debating is there's anywhere else to go. Could it go up top? But in the swamp right in front of Randy's taxer is the only place that this can go. This also lets me do exactly what I was talking about in Mark's position. I can then start clearing things in the desert, making it so that Mark and Randy are not making money off of their taxers, or at least that it's cheaper for Jeff and I to go around the outside. The only thing that I don't like about this is I'm not really trying to play a builder strategy right now. There aren't builders in play. They've kind of been soaked up across a couple of different players. We just haven't like really flipped them out. And so while I really like a builder strategy, this is just a bad builder game for it. Yeah, like that's just the way of it. Jeff makes the play of, I would like even more money, please. And then I think he's going to spend $1 to scooch in. There you see him brandishing his wingspan ring for intimidation factor. And there we have it. Back down to 0 employees. 0 additional employees, I guess. Yeah, Mark is in the same position that I'm in that he is kind of on the same pitter patter that Jeff is, but he's 4th order rather than 3rd order. And so, now if he wants to get some bandits, they're just worth a couple like fewer bucks, it's $1 fewer in this instance, but those little cuts add up. They do make it a little bit harder. I think even still with $4 in hand, there's a pretty decent chance that he's going to stop in there, take $4. I don't think that rushing to the end benefits him very much right now. He's not getting first crack at the employees because Randy and I are just about to go there and sop up all the discount ones. I'm pretty sure I'm like brokish at this point. My plan is just to buy one thing. Yeah, I've got $9, so I can barely pay my way through the desert and then hire somebody. So I think that the thinking here is, well, there's not a lot of builders in play, but I really don't want to go cowboy strategy. So I will buy that builder there, and then there's going to be discounted Cowboys in play. Mark's going to go Cowboys. We're going to get out of each other's lanes. Our lives are going to be so much better. Let's go. That's the plan. Now, also, Randy and I are racing to get to that bandit spot because suddenly it's very, very juicy to go there. I thought it was interesting that Mark chose to put that second one there rather than put another Cowboy out. That says to me that he's kind of hoping that the game will go a little bit longer. Or maybe that those bandits will kind of like have stuck around when other players kind of come through. But I think everybody's getting pretty broke at this point in time. And so I personally would have put out another Cowboy rather than another bandit because I just, when the bandit thing is at the end of the track, I'm just so loath to help other players, even if it's just for $1. But I think that maybe Mark is attending to like, what does it look like in terms of the pacing of the game by putting out another thing, or it just doesn't really want to see another Cowboy in the market. And here we go. Randy paying $3 to go the route where he has his own taxer. Just a brutal example of how expensive the world is about to be. The other thing about my taxer at the bottom now is it's way too slow because I've got that other cardboard blocking up the bottom swamp there that I'm just never going to use. That building that it is the bottom is now completely dead. There's absolutely no reason I would ever use it for anything. It's too many move actions for people to avoid the taxation situation there. So that did work out nicely for me. I'm appreciative that Mark didn't end up placing his in the bottom row there, and Randy kind of was forced to put it in the middle row there. That's something that actually I think ends up working quite favorably for me. And Randy does exactly what I said earlier in the game. Instead of paying either of us, he's going to pay $4 to the bank. Rather than paying $3 to his opponents, which I think is the right call for him in this instance, because when you're in the lead, you want to keep your opponents down. And he doesn't have $5 extra to use his location to clean up the world. And this is going to be a recurring theme. The world is really, really muddy right now. There's a lot of hazards that need to be removed, but all of us are too broke to even spend the $5 that we have to clean up the hazards that we need to clean up to get there. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, except for it's either $4 to my opponents or $4 to the bank, which becomes an absolute no-brainer. And then as predicted, Randy, bought essentially the two engineers, one of them at a discount because of the first engineer thing. He could have bought three things, but everybody's so choked on money that he ended up not being able to buy the third. And I end up buying just a singleton. I think about it for a while, but we land on buying a builder here. The other thing too is there's just not a whole lot left to build with the two builders. So the third builder gives me kind of some options. I can start like leveling up things to other things. And maybe make some use of this Garbo that I've placed out here. In retrospect, I wish that I had placed my one building. I mean, first of all, just like somewhere else that I could use it. But I'll be honest, I don't even know where it would be. I really don't. Another reason that I didn't want to upgrade my one building into my two building, aside from the fact that I want both my 1 and 2 in play, which is that taxes are gonna help me out a little bit or hurt the other players a little bit, is we are playing the game where the 10 tile, the super tile that like is the most expensive one, is the 9 builder tile that caps your certificates and moves you 5 spaces. And I really like going from 1 to 5 to 9 if possible. And that's the plan right here. There's that 7 builder out there. So my hope is to get around on the track, have $11 when I get back to that builder spot to go from 1 to 5, then the lap after, drop into the building location, bump that 5 to a 9. And then, yes, I have to pay Randy and Mark every time I use that, but that is going to be the plan. Like, I'm here to deliver with tons of certificates. I've got a couple okay cows in my deck. That's the game plan that we are executing here. Jeff stops in. He goes ahead and uncovers the second pay $1 move space. So he's kind of indicating that he is going to sort of force his way along the station master route here. This is kind of a funny situation because he has a very slow movement, but you can like move, you can, force yourself to move to, to like jump from station to station. He just doesn't have any employees yet to move into those spots. And so kind of this question that Randy has of like, well, am I going to grab any of these station masters in front of him, or am I just going to use these 5 engineers to go flying down the track? And I think one of the things that Randy is not worried about in this point in time is the very last one of those station masters is 3 points for every 2 stations that you've stopped in. That is an amazing, amazing tile that's only from 2nd edition, wasn't in 1st edition, that really benefits the engineer strategy. And no one can really contest it. It is what it is, right? Like he's there and he's going to be able to claim it. There's no way Jeff is going to get there before him. I think we are laughing at Ra. I think this is one of those like Ra moments. Oh, snap. Jeff had the whole thing. He had the extra certificate. He had the 3-year in hand, and he goes all the way to Chicago, picks up a ton of money. And he does what I think is kind of the default play for most players at this experience level, which is up his movement speed. Movement speed's pretty important for him because look at the bottom of this track right now. Jeff has what looks like a really nice start. He's got a lot of money. He's got the first station master tile. But if you look at the bottom of the board and you look at his personal board, you see he has no employees. You see he has no taxation in a world full of taxation. He is going to be paying for that for the rest of the game. So while he has, I think on paper, a strong start, as soon as you look at the board state, you can see that Jeff is going to be fighting an uphill battle for the rest of the game. If we ended the game right now, I think he wins. But that's not how it works. Mark takes a really quick turn. He just drops a little baby tax in the only spot that I think really makes any sense. If he drops in the swamp, it's just kind of like, well, actually, no, I take it back. He could drop it in the swamp. He could drop it down south, just kind of like hoping to clog up that whole thing. He's the first one at the front of the line. But if he does not get to 6 move speed, then he's in a situation where he actually can't take any actions in the bottom row there. So he could really shoot himself in the foot by placing that taxer there. So even though I actually think at the bottom of the swamp might have been the best spot to put that building, putting it up top there is just as good, saying, look, if players don't get broke by the end of the track, I'm going to get paid first before Jeff. It's really expensive to go the other way. So if you're not broke, either make sure you're broke or you're paying the both of us. Yeah, and he must be doing that. Yeah, because he's got $9 on hand. So if he wants to buy an employee, he's got to keep some money because he's about to pay a lot of money going through the swamp. Let's see what my money situation was. I'm just discarding some ones here to go from 4 up to $6. I say 6 because I had to pay 2 to my opponents. I think I was debating whether I was stopping in to buy a cowboy, but because Randy had stopped to move his train, this was my opportunity to break speed parity with him. And like I said, now the plan is get the 4th engineer, build up to the 9er. We've got our game plan now. Also, I really, really need money. I am going to stop in and pick up that $4 bandit on my next turn, and Randy can't get it. So, yeah, this is my chance to re-up, see what happens. I don't know what I do in Jeff's seat here. He needs to get to buy employees. He could buy 2 engineers and kind of just plan to sort of soak up whatever station masters Randy doesn't take along the way. But the station masters there reward you for having built a bunch of buildings, which he's going to be able to build a couple, but not that many, for completing a lot of for completing a lot of objectives, which is possible and something that maybe he could start considering. And then the other one doesn't even give you any points. It just gives you extra certificates. He decides now is the time that he will spend 4 rather than 3, which I think makes a ton of sense. That's one of the advantages of having 6 move speed, is that now he doesn't need to pay us, which is really unfortunate for me to see, as I just placed that taxer there. And he goes into this building location. I don't think there's any 1ers left, so all he can do is upgrade something. I think that means he's going to upgrade his tax building up top from a 1 to a 2, further incentivizing people to be broke at the end of the track. Also, and actually maybe more importantly for Jeff, he wants this building for its power more than I think anybody else. Spending $5 to remove a hazard is a great ratio of points. If you're picking up a 3 or 4 pointer with it for $5, that's a really, really good point value. Those hazards can be used for objectives at times, which I think is another kind of hidden benefit of picking up hazards. I think a lot of players undervalue hazards. When I go and look at my BGA stats, I clearly overvalue them. I get a lot more hazards than I think the average person. I just like the conversion for just about any strategy that lets you say, hey, I'm just going to turn this money into victory points. And it cleans up the board in places where people have cluttered things up. Imagine if he removed even just a green hand, but that black hand from that desert all of a sudden there makes a big difference for him. He also just traveled to the swamp at the bottom. Like, he wants to dredge this board. I legitimately think that one of Jeff's strategies at this point in time could just be clean hazards. He could just go up to the top, spend 5, spend another 7, clean hazards, and that could be like how he goes through the course of this game. Unfortunately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because Mark placed his building there, he couldn't do that this turn, which is hilarious. I mean, I don't think that's what Mark was thinking when he placed that, but if Jeff said, you know what, I'm not going to go for employees, I'm going to go here. There you see me with it. I don't know if yeah, that's exactly right. I'm saying, Mark, like, no, I don't want you to buy that builder. You're supposed to be the cowboy guy. And Mark says, I'm not interested in being the cowboy guy. So he ends up going and buying the builder, which obviously is just miserable for me. I really needed that. For the game plan. It's a huge bummer to see him scoop that up, for us to continue. Now we're both at 2-3, which is just horrible for both of us. Just executing bad builder strategies. I did say at the beginning I thought it was the best strategy. I do think that often builder can support 2 players. It's just this is not the game for it because not enough builder tokens have come into play, and Randy bought one at the beginning of the game, which is making it just a little bit tighter in that market for us. We're just off to a very, very slow start with this builder strategy. And I think it's even worse for Mark because he's behind me in the order as well. I'll be able to put a builder out. How much do they cost there? Are they 8? 5? Yeah. So I have to pay, I think it's 8 for the builder now instead of 7. Maybe it's 9. I don't know. I don't remember what that row is right above the cowboy there. Let me see if I can find a picture. Well, Randy's thinking here. What is Randy thinking about? Wow. So Randy doesn't want to discard 2 cards for $4, which must mean that he doesn't have 2 cards, or he already has an ideal delivery hand. Because it was only $1 that I think he paid. And so he goes along the rock falls here, pays that $1 to the bank rather than other players. And he's going to take an auxiliary action here. Yeah, I have to assume that he did not have 2 of the same cow. I can see that he's got a 1er in his hand, but I guess we'll have to see when he delivers. Maybe we'll pay attention for that. Or maybe maybe he picked up a couple more bucks and then he didn't want to pay 3 to the other players. So he figured whatever, +1 for him, right? Because he's just taking auxiliary action to take $1 now rather than +4 for him. I don't know. All right, I can't see how much it is. Not that important anyway. Oh, yes. Now we see me counting dramatically. This is me deciding whether I need to stop in and take the $6 for the bandit, I think. And then what the moves look like if I don't do that, will I have enough money to buy this builder that I want to put out? Because the thing that I'm worried about is if Randy goes in right now, then he can choose to put out 2 cowboys, and then suddenly I can't do the whole plan. But $6 is a lot of dollars in a game where money is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I also suspect that Randy is going to be willing to take $5 in a game where money is getting tighter. But it's a little bit tougher to tell because he's got sort of his like nearly full entourage of engineers. In fact, 5 is kind of the magic number. If he only ends up taking 1 station master, 5 is the number that you need on the right side of the board with the tracks are that goes from like dun, da, 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 that like bounces from one to another, except for all the way at the bottom where you need 6, but that's okay. You can just use an auxiliary action to push the rest of the way. Jeff pays his miserable desert tax. All right. And then he's down to 11. So if he has a white cow, that puts him at 13. He does. 13 lets him buy either 2 cowboys, the 5 and the 6er. Nope, it's the 2 cowboys, 5 and the 6er. Or a singleton. I think the 5 and the 6er just makes the most sense. If he's planning on picking up stations by just kind of like brute forcing his train through there, that's one reason why you'd do that. Because then you can also you can throw those cowboys into those stations. I think that's fine. And also he can decide to, buy some discounted cows. He can't do it this lap. I do think that board position wise, Jeff is just kind of toast at this point in time. He ends up doing pretty well by the end of this game, better than I kind of would have expected. But I think that it's just not having the infrastructure. You need to have a plan of what you're doing essentially in every leg of the lap. What am I doing at the bottom of the board, in the middle of the board, and the top of the board? And the answer could be I have move speed that lets me cheat past that. But this is not a board that has that. Jeff has a move speed of 6, and he is still absolutely slogging his way through. This is one of the reasons why this board is actually very favorable for a builder strategy, even though the builders themselves have not come out, because in the bottom part of the board, you build. In the middle part of the board, you can build some more or use a building buy more builders or use a building that you've placed out there. And at the top, you can get some more money because builders tend to be a very money-hungry strategy. There we go. We see Randy did not have 2 of anything. That explains that. Kind of a huge bummer to see Randy go in here. This ruins the plan that I had of putting a builder into play. I was hoping that he would take the $5, but he's got a really good hand. He doesn't need to stop. He doesn't need the money as much as I was maybe hoping or thinking that he might. And so instead, he just goes in with his 8, spends some certificates, goes to the tenor, and then increases his move speed, which gives him a lot more flexibility. Now, of any player on the table, I think actually Randy needs move speed probably move speed is actually really good for him. The reason is that he can go to move his train and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 onto his onto his hazard remove you 2 spaces spot. That actually will fling him around the board quite powerfully. Another reason why a piece of cardboard at the bottom there would have been great. Would have been great. I just had a stroke of what I should have done with that level 1 building at the beginning of the game. I should have placed it where my level 2 building is. The reason is it would have made it so that no one else is super incentivized to place their tax building in front of it, because the move 2 spaces ends up dudding out. So they would only be placing it for the tax purposes, which would be legitimate. So it would kind of slow them down. And I could have upgraded my 1 into a 2 if I ended up not going for a builder strategy throughout the course of the game. That would be fun. It's a lot more effective than whatever it ended up being now. Of course, if we didn't flip that swamp to go into play, which is totally reason. I didn't think I was that. It's not that unlucky that we flipped a swamp. But if we didn't flip the swamp, I could have gone down there and gotten some extra cash and certificates, which I think would have been helpful at the beginning of the game too. Alas. So I think that row that the builder is in is like a $10 row. And I put it out there just to have some option of buying something. I hate buying things out of the $9 or $10 row. But it's essential, right? At a certain point, you got to do what you got to do. So what did I have? I've got $10, $13, $16 here. $16 here. And I need to pay like $5 in taxes. And what I really need is I need to be able to afford that and then $4 more. Yeah, I have a money problem for sure. Oh, I remember how I solved this money problem. It's so goofy. You also see that unfortunately I was only able to deliver an 8. I actually went ahead and delivered to an 8 even with the penalty, because it's not that much more of a penalty than playing to 6. I didn't want to play to 4. I didn't want to pay the cost there. So the way that my card draw has worked out has been pretty unfortunate, because I actually have 2 3s in my deck and I didn't manage to draw them together. So I actually think I am holding a 3 in hand right now. It didn't work out on the last draw, and I'd already used my draw discard, remember, in the second round, second lap or whatever, which makes it tough. All right. I was prognosticating a little bit, so looks like Jeff went and paid for a little bit of a pricey I don't think that Black Bandit was there. So he went and moved his train a little bit, got his little bit of certificate bonus, his dollars. Nice little edge there, nothing incredible. Mark got a couple bucks. And we're going back and doing the cow refresh that we were supposed to do before. Randy is teasing Mark because he didn't organize it in the way that was preferred. And this is a miserable flop for Cowboys. I mean, in a sense, other players can't buy into it. It's a really miserable flop for 2 Cowboys, which Mark and I have. 3 Cowboys, you can buy those brown cows for $5, but you're really also hoping to like be able to buy a couple 3 cows, blue and a red at the same time is pretty nice. Getting a 4th Cowboy allows you to buy those purples. It's just that you have to have $6 every time you come into the Cowboy location. And there's just no options. So I think this is a pretty rough flop for the Cowboy situation, which Randy loves seeing because he's the only one that has not bought any Cowboys. And there's still so many in the market. God. So at this point, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, okay. So Jeff moving his train has opened up the option for Randy as he moves to go into either of the next 2 stations, which was not an option preceding. So I think all of a sudden his world has opened up. And the question is, does he drop into that spot there? Does he drop into that spot there and buy that station? That endgame bonus of objectives for 3 points is usually not that good. It's usually 3 points. and it's not even guaranteed that it's 3 points. I've seen it be 6 before, and that was truly mind-blowing to me. And I think I've heard tale of it being 9. It's really, really tough to pull off. The top bonus is not quite what you want. Usually you want those permanent certificates. Popping something off the board is nice, but there's nowhere really that Randy cares that much about. He can remove a rock fall up top, but it's still pretty crappy up there even when he does remove something. So no matter what, he's paying a lot of taxes. No matter what, his plan is to be broke by the time he gets to the top of the board. Removing it from the bottom doesn't really help him in any way whatsoever. It's just faster to go straight through the middle there. And then he doesn't really want to remove it from the desert on the side of the board. So removing hazards isn't that beneficial. Taking a bandit is $4, which is nice enough, but not that exciting. So I think that location is not worth it. The location that's 2 points per building, 4 points is respectable, really easy for him to get another 6 points, and 2 certificates he'll be able to use. But it doesn't really move his train quite as far as he wants to. It blocks Jeff, but I don't think he's trying to block Jeff. I don't think that's the player that you're trying to get in the way of right now. And so my instinct is you just choo-choo the full way. You just go the maximum 5 spaces as far as you can go, and then figure it out next turn. The other advantage of going 5 spaces here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is it puts you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out from the spot that I really want him to be at, or that he really wants to be at, all the way at the end of the track. But the other option here, right, is he can just go station masters. He could go into that spot that we were just discussing, the objective spot, then move 4 more spaces into the 2 certificate spot, pick up some more engineers, move again, right? So like if he wants to like stop all along the way, I think he could, but I just think that that's not exciting enough. I think the plan is run the engineers to the end, go, go, go. The final thing to consider is to move into that station, not take the station master, but spend the $4 just to have the location, because he's going to get value for each of his locations, because he's going to get that station master location with the every 2 is worth 3 points. Now, I don't know that he's got the money to do that. He's got 11. He's going to move 6. He's going to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 taxes, which is why he's moved that aside. So he's going to have $6 left. He can get 2 back from auxiliary actions, so it'd be 8. So he could, if he was planning on going to the 2 permanent certificate spot, then he could, I think he could do exactly that. So he could have dropped in there and scored a couple points that way, at the expense of some money. But 4 for 2 is only an okay ratio. Well, no, it's a really good ratio. It just doesn't structurally do a lot. And really it's 4 for 3.5 points, because it's 1.5 points for every station when he gets that one over there. But if he's not planning on taking the 2 certificate station, and I can't quite see his auxiliary board to see if he's got the move the 1 extra space. If he has the auxiliary board thing that says the move the 1 extra space, then really his dreamy situation is that he goes in there, right? He moves 5, pays 1 to move the train the extra space, scooches into that location, and then just runs the train the rest of the way. I think that's the way to go, and he's about to get the extra $1 he needs from me. Did I just pay 5? Looks like I did. 5, 6, 7, 11. I'm about to pay 1 to Randy, so down to 10. And then build something. I just wind up doing whack stuff right now. I'm so so lost. I wish that I could see the buildings a little bit better. I could build that level 2 building, the auxiliary, and then move a space. That one's always okay. One of the other, we have the level 3 building that does the discard a 3 cow for $7 and do an auxiliary action. And I build exactly that. I literally say this and I'm like, this is a whack building and I never build it. I don't think this is generally a good building. You don't have 3s that you're looking to discard. You want to keep them in your hand for the end of the round so that you can deliver to Chicago, which I will not be able to do for some time. It does, however, give you $7, which is a lot of money, especially when you really, really need it. And it's nicely in a location where I can just mess with getting extra certificates, which I'm desperately in need of. And looks like I'm down to $6 here. So just pretty broke. So another option for this turn, I think, let's see, I spend 4 there. I go down to $6. Wait. I have 6. I'm going to be down to 2. Yeah, I must have paid that 5 because the difference between $2 and $7 is not, or I guess really $9 and $14 if I count the extra 7 that I had there. Either way, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, which is buy the builder to upgrade the 1 to the 5 and then subsequently the 5 to the 9. So the plan there is kind of messy. I say, look, I might as well spend this money while I've got it. I'll build this building. I'm also thinking I'm not going to get a builder again. Like, this is just a nightmare, this whole situation. So I could also build the 3, then the 3 up to a 6, then the 6 up to a 9. I think we've got the 6 that's like the, we'll have to see if any of us build it, but I think we've got the 6 in this game. That's the discard a cow, get an objective, get $6. So I think that was the other plan. And you see, I just love having options in this game, even if the options that I've left myself are bad. And we are at now the halfway part of the game, and I still have not settled on a strategy, which is usually a pretty bad place to be. Did Jeff move? I thought his piece might have been there from last turn. I kind of missed what was going on, so I was rambling about my own play here. No, I think he was there last turn, so he's trying to decide where to go. Oh, he's pretty broke. How's he broke when he was there? He must not have had the 1s when he discarded last turn. 2, 3. So I think I'll take a cowboy for $4. And then he will use that money to scooch his train in. I mean, he's admittedly in absolutely no hurry. Randy has moved past, so he can actually claim this station at any time. In fact, actually now might not be the time. Maybe instead he just takes some money or draws discards or something like that. Because then he can keep his 3rd cowboy to do some buying of those brown cows. Nope, they're here for one thing. It's station mastering. So I think this says to me, Jeff's not planning on buying cows. He's planning on moving on to the next one where the objectives thing are. That means that he needs to start paying attention to what he can do for objectives. And I think at this point, he is done buying employees. He's just buying things that are victory points. So buying things that are hazard removal. It's another reason why having his taxer at the end of the loop is a little bit tough, because he's just shorter on cash by the time he gets there. Be nice if he could go broke before then. Mark, always $1 behind Jeff. His little edges are hurting him. And I think this is what I was worried about. I think I actually had figured out a plan where I just grabbed some extra money, went in, bought the expensive cowboy, but I was worried that both Jeff and Mark wouldn't go in, and they didn't. So I'm Definitely glad at this stage that I did my kind of banana strategy, because I was just worried that things would not work out in the way that I quite wanted. Here I go, getting a couple extra bucks from Randy. So he's going to go, I'm pretty sure he's just going to whip over to his spot. Yep, great. He's just paying his many taxes along the way, 3 of which are mine. This is the other thing that's hard to calculate, is like where the various, when players are going to pay this or that. And he is just going to whip straight to that spot there. So now is the kind of crucial moment. Randy's already decided he wants the double certificate thing. It's really going to help him deliver, and it does help him deliver for the rest of the game. For me, this is a really crucial decision. Let's pretend that he has an auxiliary that lets him move 1 space. I think it's possible that he doesn't have that open, depending on what he opened up, but let's pretend for a moment that he does. I think he does, because I think I remember thinking this at the time. I really think that moving 5 and scooching 1 into that last spot there would have been a spicier play in this moment. He's got the money to do it, right? He's got $3 left over right now, so he's exactly the money he needs to do it. And then he's in a situation where he has exactly 5 engineers going onto the right side of the track, which means he just moves, and then he just goes ding, ding, ding every time he bounces around. That is how he spends his money for the rest of the game. Never buys another engineer and just does that for the rest of the game. This has a different option. This makes it so that Randy's hand is a lot better. He can deliver to places like 12, maybe even to 14, which is a bunch of points. He doesn't have to worry about getting jammed up in a spot where he's going to have to like deliver to 4 or just kind of have a rough game. That way, there's still a little bit of time left in this game. No one is going especially fast. There's no, cowboy player that's doing multiple deliveries that's going to accelerate the course of the game. What am I looking at the camera for? So he needs that 2 certificates, because it's not like he's got a lot of cow situation. I think he has bought 1 cow. Yeah, he's definitely bought 1 cow. And now he can get both. And all it costs him is that now he needs to just buy an extra replacement engineer for the movement on the other side, or move 4 and use auxiliaries to make the rest of the difference. You don't need to have 5 engineers to make the right side of the track work. You can definitely get away without it. Here I go, getting a bunch of cash. I am up to 3, 4, 5, 10, 12. Oh, God, I'm so smart. No wonder I made that play. I'm at 12. If I have a white cow in hand, I discard that for 2. Am I spending money? What am I doing? Am I 11 or 12? Or 10? No, that's 12. That's 12 for sure. Oh, there I go. I'm counting my own money. It's 10 for the builders, and then I want 4 more. So if I have a white cow in my hand, I am so set when one of these players goes in there to buy one of those ridiculously expensive builders and make the plan happen. I hope I have a white cow. If I am, I'm the smartest man in the world. All right, I'm going to get a water refill. One quick moment. All right, chicken is marinating. Let's go. I did more than just get water. Where are we? Oh, we're like in a... Wait, where are we? Look at me in the tank there. It's not good posture for my neck, I'm sure. Mark's chilling, yawning. Oh, it's my turn. That's why. I'm often a very quick player. I feel like I say this a lot. And then you see me at this tournament where I'm like thinking pretty heavily. I just don't want to make like a small mistake. I wonder what I was thinking to wrap up the turn there. Must have been like what I was discarding or something. I got my cert, it looks like. All right, we're going to have 2 going-ins here. Not much in the way of choices here. I suspect that Jeff will put out an engineer. I just don't think giving money to other players is good. He also wants the game to end fast. I think of anyone at this table, Jeff wants this game to be over sooner than just as soon as possible. I guess he's counting like where he thinks folks are going to be going. Yeah, that makes sense. See what you got. Oh, didn't quite see it. Great. Let's check in. How things are going. So Mark and I think Mark is just running a similar strategy to me, but doesn't, he's missing a few buildings. I think he maybe has an extra cow, but also maybe not. He's got a little bit more money on hand right now as he's ending his lap. He's going in third time. I'm going in a third time. Oh, but he has a hazard or two. That's what he has over my building advantage. So I think we're in kind of similar boats. I think I'm a bit ahead of Mark at this point in time. Yeah, look at those crap-tastic objectives. I didn't actually talk about those when I was talking about the objectives thing at the top, but I'm sure that has an impact on like why players should not be focusing on getting objectives there. If those objectives were a little bit more attainable, then maybe we'd be talking about something different. I really dislike how many of the objectives are go to San Francisco in the deck. You can get these like really awkward. This is a very clogged game. It's just and the game scores will end up being quite low at the end. All right, Mark doesn't really get much in the way of choices at all here. He's going to throw out 2 bandits, and then I assume he's going to put out a builder. Yeah. That's not in the bet. It's in the 8 spot rather than like a 6. I think it's the 8 spot. I think that's the 8 row. And then the next row is the 10 row. Maybe the row that I was grousing about is a 9 row rather than a 10 row. And then the one right after is 10. I don't remember. Whatever. Expensive rows and not expensive rows. Mark's got a pile over there. So he also for sure wants to be doing, the thing. One thing we didn't actually discuss earlier about Mark's placement of, look, Mark made it to Chicago. So he's got that move speed. So now I really feel like his taxer being in the bottom would have been pretty nice because the taxer, no, but take it back. What I was going to say before I realized I was wrong is that's at the bottom there, like right at the bottom there would be a sweet spot for him to have his ultimate building, get all the certificates, move 5 spaces, because 5 spaces puts him onto his blue building that bumps him 2 spaces. So from the beginning, he could like ricochet right to the middle. However, because that spot is behind where the build location is, it would take additional time for him to put it into play anyway. So actually really, if he is going to build the ultimate building, it's going to be at the top where he'll actually be able to use it kind of the turn after he ends up building it. Well, it's still really awkward because the employees are after the building spots. So short of being in the sweet spot, which is that row between building and employees, there really is kind of not a good spot on the board, right? The dream is that you want the employees to be before the building spot because you buy your 4th builder, you either upgrade a 1 to a 5 or you build a 0 to a 4 if it's the other super building that costs 8. And then you go onto the building spot and then you upgrade your 5 to the 9 or the 4 to the 8, depending on which situation you're in. And that allows you to have gone from not having a 4th builder on the turn to having your ultimate building all in one lap. And so that's not possible in this game because of the reverse order. And so then instead what you want is you want to make sure that your building is after where the builder building is. The advantage of mine versus Mark's is that it's like it can be kind of cashed in like right away rather than having to like slog your way through to get to the end. Although the advantage with Mark's is that it could ricochet him straight into the final corner there. Randy just scoops up a bunch of cash. And here I go executing nonsense, spend a bunch of money. There it is. And it won't last for long, but I throw the extra taxer thing there. I don't think I'm ever planning on getting a 5th builder this game, so it doesn't really matter whether I can't remember in this game if they had multiple of the 5er spots. It can be a good strategy to not play that we'll call it a double taxer or a triple taxer, the one with both hands. Sometimes you want to save that spot because you want to save that building, because if you get to 5 or 6 builders, putting that building into play can really slow opponents down in certain corners. And like, you're not using most of your buildings at that point. You are just building the buildings for their victory points. However, since I'm not going to be going to 5 builders, I don't care. And I might as well just up it to the most taxes it can before I change it into the final form that it's going to be, which is the ultimate building. Then I don't know if you caught it, but then I skipped off to the bathroom, pleased with my actually being able to put together a game plan 2/3 of the way through the game. Yeah, actually, it's building that like discard a 3 to get 7 money, and I think I end up not getting to Chicago this turn because of it too. It sucks. Like, that's not a great place for a player to be in a game. I don't love the way that my game is shaping up here. However, I am, in watching this back, quite proud of how clever I was with money management in those moments there, as well as player management to make sure that there's a builder available for me to buy, given that Mark and I just have butting heads with the purchases this game. Jeff here has to do something, and he upgrades his 2 to the 3 there. I think maybe with the idea of going from a 3 to a 4 or something. I think this is a huge mistake for him. Like I said before, I think one of his outs in this game is just buying hazards to make it so that it's less crappy for him to be traveling along the board in this game, and so that he can score points in another way, right? It's a decent way to score points. So it's a twofer for him. And there's a tax at the top there. It doesn't matter if he doesn't get paid for that tax that often. The fact that he's forcing other players to make subpar decisions to get there is fine in and of itself. And maybe he gets a couple bucks here and there. That's fine too. I think I would have much preferred if he's just doing this for the points, for him to upgrade his level 1 building down by the bandits to a level 2 building, the one that has the 2 auxiliaries and the scoot you another space. I think that would have been a much more interesting and powerful choice for him, because in case the bandits end up getting cleared, he can then like go around there in order to buy maybe like a discounted cowboy or something. I don't love the general plan. And then we saw here that he paid other players 3 instead of paying the bank 5. That's 5 is a lot to pay to the bank. So I think that I agree with that choice as well. Mark's counting out his money because he also is going to probably buy a way too expensive builder and use it to immediately build this turn. So he's seeing what he can do with his money after paying a whole pile of taxes. Looks like he'll be paying probably 4 to the bank and then 3 to Randy and myself. So that's 7. He's got 8 money there for some reason. Yeah, he just has so many different options of what he could spend his money on, right? Because he can If he pays more taxes to other players, then he can pay 5 to remove a hazard. If he buys an employee or not, that can kind of help him decide like whether he needs to spend the money. If he decides that he's not playing an employee, like maybe he goes to the building and then upgrades something. He's got a couple of choices here. I don't remember what the level 4 buildings are in this game. Like in theory, you could upgrade his level 1 to level 4 building, but I don't think that we have any. We don't have the one that's money for builders and then move. I don't believe. And then the other one that's like hire and move your train is also not good for him. So yeah, upgrading a 1 to a 4 doesn't seem so great. He could just build the level 3 building just to have it, and then we would have more of those level 3 buildings than I've ever seen in the game. I also forgot that Mark had increased move speed, so he's just going to whip straight through, which costs him a little bit extra. Makes me happy that I upgraded that taxer there. So it's going to cost him 5, 6, 7, 8 in taxes, 5 of which to me directly, which is bonkers. That is nutters for a person to have to pay out of pocket here. 3 to Randy. He's got $10 here. That's his 12. That lets him, not quite. That lets him buy and then like do like a 3, but not a 4. Is that right? Off by $1. Ooh, that is a huge beating for him. Oh, maybe you guys are cheap. Maybe those only cost. Maybe they don't cost 9. Maybe it costs 8. That would also explain, I think, my numbers a little bit. Is it 10? I don't even know what's going on now. Well, he's building. He's looking at a level 4 building, so. Oh, we do have the one that pays you for builders. Oh no, I don't like that at all. Okay, so we do have the one that pays you for builders. That's a nice building to have if you're not going to upgrade to the ultra building. He's looking at his hand because he's saying to himself, look, I have a couple 1s that I need to discard this turn, so I'm going to be stopping there. I can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. So he'll just discard the rest of his money to do that. But Jeff had just removed his taxer building. So, I mean, I guess he does make a profit here, right? Because he spends the 2 that he has there, minus any that he makes in taxes right now, which might be none, honestly. So he spends those $2 down. He's going to get $6 back by discarding a card and a certificate. Then he'll discard the 2 cards that he wants to anyway. So yeah, it's positive. I mean, it's positive for this turn, but I think that it essentially is like nearly just a 1-turn play. We also saw that there was another rockfall out there. Moving through those is just a pain. I mean, it's not like he's going to keep hiring people, I think, throughout the whole game. So like, he's not going to be on this spot. It's a good play for this round. I just think that it structurally doesn't benefit as much. I would have straight up just placed that at the end of the loop. Right before you go into Kansas City, and just collect $4 extra that way. Essentially, he is, actually, if we look at it that way, where he gets that building no matter what, he is giving up $2 this turn to get the hazard action, which lets him discard a card in his hand, because maybe he's just looking at a bunch of 1s right now. So let's not discount the value of that, to get a certificate and $2. So basically he's getting a certificate because he's paying $2 for it rather than just putting it at the end. So he's getting a certificate and a discard and draw a card, right? It's like cycle a single card rather than putting it at the end. And he might not be able to take that action again on the subsequent turn. So it's a great tactical move. It's just long-term going to be a penalty for him, right? Here I go, just kind of filtering my deck. You're noticing how many of us have gone to that spot with our 1s, and just there's there's no other way to get those crappy cards out of our hands. So doing it at the end there is very volatile and leads to a little bit more of an erratic game because you don't know what 2 cards you're going to draw off the top most of the time. I mean, if you've managed your deck, you can, but if you discard those 2 1s and then you draw black 2 off the top of the deck, that's like hardly an improvement, and can feel really bad. Looks like Jeff has used his draw 2, discard 2, and maybe Mark has as well. Randy's the only one who hasn't. So someone's running hot. Here, Jeff is going to pay $1 zillion to, well, hilariously, $4 to the bank rather than $7 to his opponents becomes kind of a no-brainer. Although my piece of cardboard there is making his life a little bit difficult in that he has to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1 more to 6. Although he could get really to any of the spaces that he'd want to, which is, I guess, move the train or move the cowboy. Yeah, I mean, none of those are so good for him, but I guess he can eventually get over to that objective thing or get some points there, which he doesn't want to get to. And then, do you spend to move the train? I think I would have taken the $2 here. No, maybe he moves the train. Yeah. It doesn't have that. I mean, it just means that he's like, the reason I'm skeptical about moving the train right now is you can move it really at any time. So it's a question about whether spending that 2 money is good or having extra money is good. So this comes down to the problem that, like, what is it that Jeff is going to be doing with his money? This is why I've been like harping on the, like, if he had money, using it to remove hazards or buy cows seem to be kind of the like main options that he has. But he ends up not having any money by the time he gets there because he has to pay so much in the way of taxes along the way. It's tough, yeah. Mark did the thing that we said he was going to do. I'm sure he just discarded a bunch of crapo. And here Randy is moving into a spot that, that spot is amazing. Very, very good for him. I didn't say this when he delivered, but he had an incredible 12 hand. A lot of this is based on the fact that he has had a handful of certificates, so the certificate management has been good, but he's got a pretty crappy deck. So notice that he did not want to spend the $5 to expand his hand size. I think unless you're playing Cowboys, most players at this level don't ever expand their hand size. 5 is a lot of money to pay. It's pretty significant. And instead, he just goes for the 7 move spaces, just gives him just a little bit of extra flexibility in case anything gets in his way. And it's 3 points at the end of the game. The other thing that's really nice about 7 move spaces now is if he doesn't want to stop at the space that he's at, he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And right from the start, he can land on his tax remover, move 2 more spaces from there to move his train. So a lot of options there. I say, money, please. I need some money so that I can buy stuff. I am constantly broke. The builder is hungry. I think, more bandit actions than most players that play this game. I prefer to do powerful things rather than hit a button and press it. I know that obviously I'm planning on building up to my super building, but I think my hand is crappy enough here that if I don't take this money, I'm not even sure that I could build up to that. Let's see how much money I have right now. Going very slowly. Oh, I've got pile, so maybe I have a bigger plan than that. That's a huge amount of money. 10, 15, 16. Yeah. So I must have some other plan. Oh, I can always remove. That was my thinking. The $6 I just took, 5 of them can be used to remove a hazard. So I'm gonna always be incidentally stopping on that anyway. So having the extra money seems worth it. It's not a huge point turn action to do that, but I am just trying to scrape with what I can get because, yeah, that's basically I'm building and that's that. I think I maybe also had a dream of like buying more builders and like getting the 4 points for having the 5th or 6th builders. But I think I also recognize that the reality that's going to happen is extremely low. All right, here Jeff is using that build. He's used that building better than anyone I've ever seen use that building. Clearly putting it on the hazard space is a really key part of that. And then making sure you're kind of like having the ones to discard to do the things that you want to do just makes for a much more interesting, right? If you have the right cards, it's move your train 2 spaces, take $4, take a certificate. That is quite the payoff. It costs him a couple bucks to get there because the cowboy was in the way, but even still. Mark could be going my way and taking money, but I also could see him going in. I think the other thing I also said to myself last turn when I was like, oh, I'll take a couple extra bucks, is that I get to keep out my super taxer, which just I think is annoying enough for Randy, who's sitting on a bunch of money right now, right? When I upgrade it, it's still going to be a black hand rather than a black and a green hand. So keeping that in play longer just means that he will be able to kind of like whip around the map a little bit less powerfully, or has to pay the price for doing so because his core loop is quite good. And then Jeff ends up removing this, which is a nightmare for me because Randy can move. Oh, and he changes his mind. If Jeff had removed that, let's look at that because then Randy could move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by going around the desert. If that one piece wasn't there, that would be a massive difference for him because on his next turn, instead of stopping in the desert, instead of stopping to build any buildings or having to pay taxes going up through the middle, he'd only pay $3. He'd go around the side there, stop in there, buy the well, would he have the money? I guess he wouldn't have the money. He wouldn't have had the money to buy the extra engineer. But removing that space, you can see that it is quite beneficial for Randy. So I think that Jeff choosing to remove that bottom one is better for multiple reasons. One is he is saving himself money one way or another, right? It's either in the desert or it's at the bottom. He's now guaranteeing that I'm not getting paid more money going through the bottom because it's $3 down there or $3 through the middle. So unless people need the move speed, they're not going to pay me. Fortunately, Randy and Mark have set up in such a way that they do need the move speed. So that works out nice for yours truly. And Mark says, I don't need the money. I've already got some money. And decides to break tempo with me. Does this mean that Mark has delivered? Yeah, Mark and I have both delivered 3 times. This is his 4th delivery. So that puts me as officially the slowest player on the board. Randy's got 4 deliveries. Does Jeff only have 3? Maybe Jeff is the slowest player on the board. He's behind me in turn order, but even still. Yeah, maybe Jeff is the slowest on the board. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, if I can see the discs correctly. All right. Randy's looking at $12 right now. If he wants to do the Dream Whip, he could spend 7, 5 of which are to me. Oh, he's got more than $12. His train move isn't going to get him into the spot. 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, maybe it will. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it can't. Even with the double auxiliary, he couldn't. He also, I think, actually doesn't have a double auxiliary because he's always been getting black discs in play rather than but he has white discs from when he landed his train, so he can have a double auxiliary, no problem. So okay, now he goes and buys his 5th engineer back, and this is what I was talking about. Like, he could be, this is a turn that he so it's actually, it is 2 turns that he paid to get the 2 certificate train station. And 2 turns can add up to a lot when you're playing engineers at the end of the game. That's what I was talking about with not taking that 2 cert thing. And I do think it comes back to bite him. Obviously, I've got the hindsight here, so I get to speak from a place of pure knowledge. I think it's really hard to give up that 2-1. And then, hey, I get to Chicago. Finally. Good for me. So I didn't end up not getting there with discarding the 3 to the 7. I discarded my other 3 to the 7. Rewarded for buying 2 3s. Hooray. But you also saw me stop a lot of ways and discard cards that I had to along the way. I actually think that I might have drawn discarded when I went to that bandit spot last time, but I'm not fully sure about that. Anyway, I do think that Randy needs to have bought the extra employee 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we see that because he wound up doing that. If Jeff had removed that hazard in the desert, Randy would have paid fewer taxes. I would have made less money. Mark would have made less money. So I made $10 off of my taxes from Mark and Randy in the last action loops, which is, I think, huge. That is what's keeping me very, very alive in this game, is players powerfully executing their plans, but it's funding this system that I have that's just a little bit weaker, a little bit more stumbling, I think, than other players. I'm wondering also what Randy's planning on doing with his $6. I wonder if he should have spent 5 to take a hazard off the board. Like, he had the opportunity with the money there. Maybe he's just saving it for the long term because he knows he needs to pay for those stations to move into. But he doesn't have enough money to move around the board and move into that 8 cost place for $5. And I don't know that he needs to move the train 2 additional spaces. Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think he needs to move 1 extra space to do 5, 5 to, because if he moves 5 and then he moves another 5, he wants to get to that 7 spot. A lot of times people playing engineers will skip that, pay $8 for a 5 victory point spot. It's a good ratio, but you really want to be getting around the bend towards the other side of things. So you might skip it entirely, and that corner is very awkward. Here we have Jeff making an interesting decision of putting a cheap builder out there. I think that this is one of those instances where I actually would have chosen to put out a bandit instead of the builder. Oh, that's not a cheap builder. That's a crazy expensive one. That's the one that's like 10 or 9 or whatever right at the end. What am I saying here? I'm pausing them because I did not pick up my objective. This is, for me, easily the most common rule that I forget in the game. My white disc is underneath the 8 there. You can't see it, but if you might remember, I placed it much earlier. So I grabbed this objective, and then we have this question of like, what should I be doing? Because it should have been in my discard pile for the draw. So we're trying to figure out how we fix this. If I remember correctly, it's like a very easy fix. Yeah, it's a very easy fix. I draw one card off the deck, and all my good cards are already in the discard pile. So there's not really a lot of like, right? I all my nice cards are already in the discard pile. And I think I didn't even look at it. Sometimes you'll see that where I like draw something and go there. Hey, it's Shadow from Gaia Project. Starting Gaia Project. God, they're starting Gaia Project while we are most of the way through Great Western Trail. Yikes. Game goes for so long. That objective there, if Jeff had ended up doing kind of like Cowboys buying things, buying hazards, might have been one that he could complete. It's a nice objective because it's 5 points, and all of the pieces of it are worth points. I like that objective more because it's indicative of how you're scoring points in other ways rather than the objective itself. You know, a lot of the objectives are kind of like as part of the journey or whatever. But I like having that one, and also it ghost moves across all this crap in play, which is nice too. I think that objective I take, by the way, turns out being actively bad for me. And I think I knew that at the time. I think I don't complete it. Or I think I never even put it into play or something. We're really, really close to the end of the game now, right? Like, you generally think about most people when they go to Kansas City, it is a 1 or 2 heads that are getting added. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7, maybe 8, but very unlikely 8 more deliveries to Kansas City. So that means in general, people can expect to hit this lap 2 more times, which is really not that many. Some players may go 3 more times while other players go 1 more time, kind of depending on your strategy. But that's sort of what we're looking at. The end of the game is nigh approaching. Mark building something that's not a lot of points, but is just always good. You can't go wrong with throwing that auxiliary guy at the end there. Nice, simple, inoffensive. And he keeps $10 here. Which I don't know what that does. I mean, I guess it's not like he could have spent it all the way down anyway, even if he bought something more expensive. I guess he could go around the outside and then maybe afford one of those builders, get a 5th builder. I mean, it's 4 points to get a 5th builder. So I could see that being his option, because then also he has got something else to build when he goes to the building place. He's doing the proper building strategy. Mine is just build the big building and that's it. His is like, I build stuff. Actually like following the rules. Not rules, rolls. So Randy drives his train right now, I think. I mean, just needs movement. Maybe he's debating a draw discard or a backup or something like that. Again, I can't see his auxiliary situation. Although he doesn't have as many auxiliary options as I think you normally would as an engineer strategy, because he's only stopped in 2 of those spots. Yeah, he's only removed 4 white discs from the board, and one of them is a certificate and one of them is money. So he's taken 2 other things off the board. So it might just be that he has move the train forward 2 spaces, pay $2, and that's it. That's my guess. That's, I think, usually the default, which you're going for with engineer. Sometimes, I mean, he hasn't done any shredding yet, and shredding at this point is crap. Shredding is the action where you back up and remove a card from your train deck for permanent time. Yeah, I'm not sure what he's thinking about right here. I mean, he's looking at his hand a lot, so he's thinking about managing something. I think he's trying to decide what his next action is going to be. And he's maybe trying to decide if he moves the train right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you're supposed to move the train 1 space. He takes $2. I guess it doesn't really matter when he moves the train, because if he moves it 5 next turn, then when he, right in the bottom, in the starting spot, if he moves it 5, then when he next lands on this exact same spot that he's on right now, then he can auxiliary scooch in and then move another 5. Get those 2 spaces, but he's going to need to make sure that he has 7 and 6 and 1. So he needs to make sure that he has $14 on hand after going through the tax spree. So maybe that's why he takes money here, because he's saying, look, I'm going to have to pay a ton when it comes to that time. That makes sense. I think that's, yeah, I like that. I think that's why he's counting. Here I go building stuff. Now I'm really fast. I know exactly what I'm doing at this stage. Did I spend all the way down? Nope. I got a ton of money though. Did I save $5? I must have saved $5. I must be buying a builder or something. 10, 14. But if Mark buys that builder, then I'm not going to buy the builder. Maybe I'm saving $1 bajillion so that I can... I think I see $14. If I go to the cow spot, I've got 2 cowboys. Maybe I'm buying a 5 cow? I don't remember buying a 5 cow in this game. But I mean, a 5 cow is 7 points. Oh, and I took the objective that's a 5 cow. Yeah, I took the objective that's a 5 cow and a hazard, so I must complete it. That must be it's got to be the plan. No wonder I was collecting all that money and not doing anything with it. What a weird plan, Nick. Playing builders, spending $12 to buy a 5 cow that I'll probably never use. I mean, it's 7 points, and no one else is going to contest me on it, right? I don't think that Mark's got the cash. So it's a safe plan, as long as I got the money for it, which means I need to get $2 from somewhere. Which either means I have a black cow in my hand or someone pay me $2 tax. It is tough watching Jeff's turns. I just feel so bad for him in this game. He manages to eke out points wonderfully at the end of this game. And like I say, his score is going to wind up higher than I think it is. Because he manages to find the little things. But it is painful going through his sequence, right? Like, he has sort of finished everything that he wants to do in this game and is just doing teensy tiny little steps to get value along the way. Upgrade this, move this here and there. I think now he upgrades his level 3 building to level 4 building. You know, that's the next step for getting some points for him. Nope, does that one instead. Maybe he's planning on using that 3 building. because I don't think he's planning on using that 2 building at this point. I mean, he's doing it just for the point upgrade that it gives him for sure. But there's too many bandits in the way. That's the reason why that spot right there is not one that you generally build a long-term game plan on, which is why I actually really like what he did with playing it there at the beginning of the game, using it to do exactly what it is, and then you're like, all right, I'm done with this building. I don't need it anymore. And then it looks like he did a ghost objective to go past those and draw some cards. That's a great time for a ghost objective. We love that. In case you can't tell, it's getting darker, so I'm trying to manage when dinner time comes. That's why I'm checking the time on the left. We're 40-ish minutes left, a little bit less. So Mark's at $10. He's debating what he can do. He's going to pay $4 in taxes one way or the other. 6 doesn't, well, he could discard a card from his hand to get up to 8. So he can buy a builder if he wanted that to be his turn. It's unlikely he's going to go up the middle because just going there to do the hazard doesn't seem very good. He could, I guess, go buy a cow, but 2 cowboys and $6 doesn't really get him anything. Yeah, he's just very, very stymied. I guess we missed the end of his turn. I don't know what the cut was. But that's okay. We didn't really miss too much. Looks like he moves his train. Maybe he didn't even move his train, just like forgot to move it. Took a couple bucks. Yeah, because he went up to 8, so he did take a couple bucks. I think he just forgot to move his train. Not that it matters at all. He might have even done it on purpose so that I can't move over him or something. I don't know. There's just no way. Neither of us are getting anywhere relevant. Randy takes $1 bazillion. Bazillion dollars are helpful for his plan, right? Because we said he needed 15 after taxes. So if he's right now sitting at 16, and I mean, taxes are a zillion, 4 or 6, depending on which way he goes. Sure. I like the auxiliary to take some extra money. I think that he doesn't have the best hand, if I saw that correctly, but it's not the worst either. And it's not like he's getting to the 14, so it's okay for him to have an off-turn deliveries. And he knows he needs the money, right? Like, so I think after he delivers, he's probably going to have enough to do exactly what he wants to do. Especially with me paying them out. I'm at 10. The fact that I'm not snap moving to that spot means that I did not draw a black cow. So I have to decide what other crappy plan I'm going to do instead. Rough. That's the alternate plan. Cool. I guess I'm planning on buying that cow on the way back next turn. Yeah, I must have not drawn the black cow. And I was unwilling to stop and buy an employee for 4 points. Because... I see. My move speed is still only 4. Because... I unlocked as a black certificate the thing that puts me down to 6. Right. The reason I do that is because I have the big building that gives me 6 certificates. So Now, if I can get to 12 with those 6 certificates, I can then unlock the move speed. I'm the only player that's still moving 4 crappy spaces per turn. And I moved to that spot because I am now 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces out, and there's no player who can build any cardboard to stop me from getting to the end by placing right at the end there. That's the thinking. And then, yeah, I just keep the money and go for the cow plan next go around, which pretty much guarantees that this cow is going to be useless. Jeff just charges to the end. He does as we suggested earlier and is going to remove some hazards, it looks like, which is great. He needs them points. My guess is it's going to be a desert hazard. I think those swamp hazards are worth just 2 points a pop at this point. And I think we've removed all the 4s. I think he's just taking 3 victory points for those hazards at this stage. The other thing Jeff can be doing actually is he could be getting certificates because every 2 certificates is worth 3 points at the end of the game for him. So that could be something that is another way for him to kind of get a few points here and there. If I was taking auxiliary actions with him, or if I'm figuring out what white discs to take, instead of taking that draw discard, I would have taken the back up your train to get auxiliaries, or sorry, to get certificates. That's just a way that you can do an auxiliary to kind of like convert into some points at the end of the game when you have that station master tile. It's a small difference. All right, Mark proves me wrong. He manages to go around and use that spot, but he had $8, so he spent 5 to go through there. So net -3, but it did get him a certificate to move to that spot. And I mean, now he's got the auxiliary at the end that he wouldn't have had before. Oh, Randy's got a pretty crappy little one right here. It's 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, never mind. He got 3 certificates, so he can cheat anyway. Yeah, so this is somewhere where having that 2 certificate thing really kind of pays out. So that lets him deliver to an 8. So for my like curiosity about this 2 certificate thing, I think what his deliveries would look like right now would be 6, 8, and 10 if he hadn't taken that 2 certificate thing. Which is awkward because then if he doesn't want to go in again and deliver at the 4 or the 0, he does want to get to 12 at some point. So we'll have to see how big his last delivery is to essentially compare. Piles of cash, so much that we can't even see it. I can't move the screen of myself and Jeff and Scott there, so I can't see what money he has underneath there. That's outside of my control. My turn. I'm going in for sure. I guess not for sure. Maybe if my hand doesn't work, I have to like stop and do some shuffling. I would be shocked if I'm not going in, given the play that I did last turn. I'm maybe debating if I want the, $6 or $8 for going to the bandit spot. I will also point out that we refilled the cow market and we did absolutely nothing. No one has bought a cow since the last cow market situation, which is crazy. But that's what happens. This is a game with no cowboys as the strategy. And lots of cowboys that came out at the beginning. I suspect that if a player had gone cowboys in this game, they would have lost. So I think all of us felt that way. There's no reason to kind of go for I don't think they would have lost miserably. They just would have lost by a little bit. No reason to get engaged in a strategy that isn't going to work out. It's just not as powerful as the other ones. Again, in this game, because we are lacking a couple of those components there. There I have a crappy 6 hand, but 6 certificates puts me up to 12. And I'm sure I'm going to take move speed, although I wonder if I take move speed 5. Yeah, I don't even take the money. I take the move speed 5 because it's 3 points. I know the end of the game is here. I don't really need a bunch of extra move. 5 movement gets me from cowboy to the end of the lap, so I'm just really hoping that no one else builds another piece of cardboard at the end of the lap to get in my way. I know that Jeff can't do it. I know that Randy is very unlikely to do so. So the only person that might do that is Mark. To expand on my point there, in case I didn't make it clearly enough, I go into the bottom, right? First, I either remove a hazard or I build or both. And then I go to max my certificates, which flings me over to the cow market because I'm trying to buy that 7 cow. And I must have counted out my money to see if I can. I'm kind of on a suspicious amount of money though, because I have to spend a lot of X's to move. So it's $14 there. Yeah, that's not great for doing 2 turns. Although I could actually just go straight to. That's actually, I bet, what my plan is. It's go straight to the certificate spot, fling around. I could see that. If I don't draw another black cow, though, I can't do it. Now we got all these cheap builders in play. That's another option too, right? If there was $14, if I had more than $14, so $12 buys the cowboy 7 points and completes the objectives. That's 10 points. $14 buys 2 builders, which is 8 points. But more than $14 allows you also to do a free build. So for like $18, it's probably more like 13 points. So that could be a pretty valid option. And it might actually be what Mark is angling on doing with his Boku piles of cash over there. $25, $26. I think that's a good chance of what Mark's trying to do. Randy's moving. No reason to draw an objective. I think he's got plenty. That's his turn. All right. If I have a black cow, my guess is that I just snap fling around the board. Because I also really want this game to end, like immediately. Randy has only points open on the last half of the board there, and I already suspect he's doing better than I am. Unfortunately, that is not what I wind up doing. That must be a 4-pointer if I was eager to take it. Oh, you know what? I also might have miscounted $1 because there's Randy's taxer there. Maybe I thought that I was going to get more money. Yeah, I might have thought I was going to get more money. So I'm off by a couple bucks. Off by $1, right? Because I'm at 9. Yeah. Oh, here's why. $8 here upgrades that 1er into this 5er, which is 10 points. By the way, is plus 9 over the 1, making me not unhappy that I built that 1 spot earlier, Scott. Obviously, it being anywhere useful would be a big difference. And we have... Right, I've just cited a lot of different ways that I can score points. I can score points by building more builders. I can score points by building this building. I can score points by removing the hazard. I spent all my money down. I could have scored points by getting the 5 cow. A lot of ways to score a lot of points, but I am money choked. And I had extra money for a while because of that kind of like surge of tax money. But that's kind of dried up as Jeff has focused on his game plan of cleaning up the world. And that means that fewer people are paying me to go the way that they need to. And because of the location of where my certificate thing is, I am needing to pay other folks as I'm moving along the track in a way that I didn't necessarily need to on preceding turns as I kind of went through the desert instead. Well, I guess I paid the same amount, but maybe just feels worse. So I wouldn't be surprised if I like hop on that certificate thing and then did exactly the same as last turn, just took an auxiliary action. It's like very, very weak. Here, Jeff is just slogging his way through the desert. It's so painful to watch. All right, Mark's coming in. He can't put out a head. So rather than having 3 deliveries remaining, we've got 4 deliveries remaining. Oh, I must have miscounted Randy's move situation last turn. He didn't need the auxiliary to make the last of the move there. Great, good for him. Hard to see those little flippos on this board. So much money, Mark. And he just delivered a 12 as well? That's pretty good for someone who does not have certificates, does not have, like, yeah, it's hard to deliver 12 as builders without some supporting strategy around it. So he's been working on that for a while. I think he manipulated his hand to get there, and to his credit, and to throw it in my face, that building up top that I was criticizing pretty heavily, that gave him the certificates he needed to go to that 12 spot right there. The objectives for him are probably useless, so it's 6 points. So yeah, you showed me, Mark. I have learned that certificates are probably worth it in the face of the, negligible money loss. He had a very slow lap for it, but I think that's okay because now he's got all sorts of money that he can end the game with a bit of a bang. Randy pays a whole bunch of money. This is unfortunate for me because I'm about to have to pay it all back. And I just wasn't sure if I was going to get the money, I think, but there he goes. Chewing his way towards the end there. Just piles of extra points. There I am. I don't think I have enough money to do anything but pay taxes, so I'm pretty sure I just take an auxiliary here. Just miserable. But I will... Well, Mark hasn't gone yet. Do I? Oh, no. I must have wanted to see if I had a white cow. Same thing. Horrible auxiliary action to finish the game. Just trudging the way here. Feels like it's going to be a low-scoring game, and that's because it will wind up being a very low-scoring game. Jeff doesn't have a lot of money. I don't even know what I could say he's going to do. Yeah. Just picking up the bandit and some money. This, by the way, is where, he could convert his money into backing up his train, which he doesn't care what it is, and get some certificates. Which he has been doing, by the way. I mean, like you notice that he's unlocked that first level there. So I think that's, and he's backed up his train. So we can see that that's a thing that he's thinking about, which is great. he'll just miss out on one certificate here, which maybe doesn't, well, maybe matters for 3 points. Bunch of cash. All right, Mark, what are you doing? You've got, I can't tell, but I think it's 33. So if he does have 33 and he stops to get builders, 14 gets him what he needs. But then he doesn't really get to do a whole lot, and it's going to be delivery. Like, this game is ending, right? Like, Jeff and I are delivering, and then Randy's delivering, and then the game is going to be over. So I think Mark then is meant to stop. I think Mark is meant to stop at building and then upgrade the building that I'm standing on right now. Basically do exactly the same thing that I did on my preceding turn, right? Upgrade the 1 building into the 5 building because it's a big boost in points. This building, this 5 building that's worth 10 victory points, is new in the 2nd edition. I think the other side of it is the 12 builder building that's worth like 25 points or a gazillion points or whatever it is. And those 2 buildings are clearly there as sort of the like builder payoff at the end of the game, get a pile of points buildings. And I think that they are probably, I think the way that those 2 buildings are designed is one of my few critiques of 2nd edition Great Western Trail over 1st edition. I think building strategy was already quite good, and I think that those buildings really have pushed it over the top in a game where I think Cowboys should be the best strategy, with other strategies being viable as well. But maybe that's just me thinking about Great Western Trail. Hey, let me pause really briefly and turn some lights on in my house. Okay. So Mark here could build, then buy builders, and then the game might be over. I don't think he wants to deliver, and I don't think he can buy builders, deliver, and then be able to build again. So I think he's limited in his actions. I think he's recognizing that. Hey, and he does exactly what we just said. Let's go. Randy's got 7 move. Yeah, he needs to go in because he needs to drive that choo-choo train. Yeah, so he's going to deliver. I'm going to deliver. Jeff's going to deliver. Which means Jeff's going to get 2 points for the end of the game. Mark a turn, Randy a turn, me a turn. That's it. Pretty cruddy little delivery here, but Randy's got a lot of certs to use. 6, 12, 13, 14, 15, was it? 15? 6, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think it was 15. Which puts him at that 14 spot there. So that's 8 points. But he's not going to get to the end of the row. Yeah, he's not going to get to the end of the row. He's got enough money, I think, to whip over to his remove a hazard spot and move. Is there enough tax situation for that? 6 plus. Yeah. Yeah, I think he can do that. So to that point, what Mark should do when he builds is drop cardboard in Randy's path so that he can't do all of that. Because Randy and I will be the only players that can be affected. And by dropping cardboard, it slows both of us down at the end there. I think it just matters for Randy. It probably does. Oh, it does matter for me because I only have 5 move, right? Yeah, I only have 5 moves, so it actually blocks both of us. That's amazing. Oh, that's so amazing. All right. What's my money situation here? Not too rich. This is the problem with not moving your train ever, is that when you deliver, you do not get as rich as you would like to when you're delivering out to 14s out there. 5, 6, 7. Is Jeff not any? Oh, okay. Jeez. I was like, wait, what? So much money to be had. Yeah. I mean, all the bandits come out at the end of the game when people don't want as much money anyway, when you start at the beginning of the game with no bandits. So that makes sense. I mean, you often see them at a certain level, but not that much. So Mark, 10, 26. 4 for taxes, 22. Maybe he has a card, 24. Buys 2 really cheap builders. That's 8, 10. So I think he can remove a hazard and he can... Oh, maybe not. That's 10. And then he spends 6 to build some building or upgrade something. Maybe even 5. It could be like 5, upgrade his top thing to the level 9 thing. That's probably the best value he can get here. Unless there's a 6 building. If there's a 6 building in this game, he can build that. I think that's worth more points than doing the upgrade that I just said. Yep, there it is. And then drop that cardboard, like I said at the beginning. Slow Randy and me down. Wow, the fact that it's double whammy is incredible. Because otherwise I could hit the certificate there and then go somewhere else. Well, I guess I don't really have the money for it. I think not paying Randy and me just cost Mark a couple points. Yeah, I can't see the values on these hazards, but I'm going to assume one of them is worth 3 given the quantity that are out there. So I think he was supposed to go down the middle, and I think he cost himself 3 points. I think he's toast anyway. I think maybe he knows that, and that's kind of why he missed it, because he's been very, very precise, I think, up until this moment. Randy moves there. Certificate doesn't do anything for him, so he might as well rip a random objective, I guess. So yeah, if he did not take the 2, how many has he got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if he didn't take the 2 certificates thing, then that last delivery for 14 wouldn't have been legit. That's 8 points. And then he'd have to place over there, which is -3. So that would be 11 points lost if he didn't take the 2 certificates thing and not the 2 points for that. So 13 points lost. However, with the extra actions that he would have had, because I said it costs 2 actions, so even just 1 action is all he needs. It's another 9. He's got enough money. He does. 9 and 5, 14 points, and 3 more, 17 points. 3 more for his station master thing. So yeah, actually it did wind up, it's very, very, very close. I don't think that it's as obvious as I thought it was. But I do think that I'm correct that in retrospect, getting that ended up being a mistake. Looks like I just removed something and upgrade something. Hooray. Or maybe just upgrade something. Maybe I didn't even remove a hazard because I was pretty broke. Yeah, because I just upgraded it 2 to 6 and I had $7. Yeah, so I just did that, no hazard removal. And then we score. I was pretty convinced that Randy had won this game at this point in time. I will tell you right now, if you didn't already know, I actually do wind up winning this game, and I win it by a point. Randy also realizes that he should have used his draw 2, discard 2 on the previous turn when he delivered. I don't know that he gets more points than having 18 points up there. So that's something that I think doesn't make a big difference. Okay. I think at this point we're basically just going to scoring. And I think Scott does the scoring on camera. Oh no, is it hidden by the video there? Oh, he did it right on camera. All right, well, I'll just talk through kind of the end here because it's underneath the video of Randy and Mark. You can see it going through. I don't remember exactly the scores. I do know that it comes down to Randy and myself at the top at, I think it's like 63, 64 or 64, 65. And then Mark and Jeff are about 10 to 15-ish points behind that. So a really low scoring game in total. And I mean, one that the tiniest of things, I mean, the number of Great Western Trail games you see come down to a point are minuscule. I think things panned out really lucky for me. There was like a little bit of stuff that got in the way, a little stumble on Randy's point that cost him a couple points. And that is it. That makes all the difference. It's one of the exhausting things about this game is that you need to pay attention to literally every single little play where they can add up. And most games don't come down to a point. Most games come down to like 10 points. That's because, you know, you on your next turn might have scored 8 or 10 points. The way that some of those things ramp at the end, I think, is quite large. You saw me going through my actions in the previous turn saying that's 8 points, that's 10 points, that's 12 points. It's a huge, huge fraction of where you kind of start in this game and what happens. So insanely close game, and just these like razor thin margins of what is happening here. I think the players all essentially fell into their tracks. Everyone at this table agreed Cowboys was not the strategy to play this game. And yeah, I mean, you could see the look on Randy's face, right? The like shock where it's just like, oh my God, like if it's this one thing and you're, 3 games of Great Western Trail into a day. So you've been playing for 10 hours or whatever. It's taxing. It's really taxing. Anyway, that's the end of that game. That was my second ring, just barely squeaked it out from the beating out the player who's not even the best at his home game, apparently. So if you think you've got the chops, maybe we'll see you next year. Thanks, everyone. See you around.